All right, today we are doing round 2 of our 2023 rookie mock draft, and let us just give you a preface here. The second round of this class is absolutely stacked. It is a deep class, so we're going to be telling you why you should be going and getting those second round picks. We're going to be highlighting all of the best prospects here today. It's going to be lots of fun. Before we do, make sure you subscribe. We are a very fast-growing channel at this point. We really, really appreciate all of you guys subscribing. We're going to start a great community here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and like this video. We're going to get straight into it today. So, figured to give us some in-depth analysis on here and get us started today. We'd go ahead and bring on our director of content, JCJ Dynasty, aka Jeremy Johnson, or the other way around. What's up, Jeremy? How are you?
Hey guys, what's going on? Good morning. Glad everybody's awake and on time and stuff. We're good.
Yeah, definitely. Now we're recording this on Monday morning, and these two didn't exactly get up on time, so I was the only one here. But all right, let's get into it today. So again, this second round, I mean, just thinking back, year over year, last year's second round was not this deep. I mean, you're talking about guys here that you could make arguments for, especially like in the top 6 picks. You could make pretty good arguments that they could go in the first round. And there have been guys, also in the second round that at some point, like in the last year, have been projected to go in the 2023 first round. So when you're talking about the depth and the talent level, everybody knew this was a very good class, and obviously, star power with Bijan and then the quarterbacks up top. But people haven't really been talking about how deep this class is, and we're gonna look at why you should be going and getting these second round picks today, because for the price, I mean, some of these guys you're going to be getting are really worth a shot here. So let's get straight into it today. We'll introduce the picks. We'll get our full breakdown from JC. He's obviously our rookie expert. We'll go over these guys just very high level before the combine, before the draft. See who you can be keeping an eye on today. So. All right, at the 201, we have Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. So, JC, initial thoughts on Tank Bigsby. There are lots of running backs in this class. Tank is a guy that I have seen projected in people's top 12. I know he's got some questions in his game, but give me what you think about Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, and real quick before we get going, I mean, second round, if you're really enjoying Dynasty, if you're a Dynasty guy, the second round is where the fun really starts, because these are when you get to plant your flag into people and you get to take the opportunity to take a chance on a guy that could potentially drastically increase in value over the next 12 months. Sure, everybody could hit on like a top 5 pick. Those guys are usually pretty good prospects with really good draft capital. Sometimes you just got to take a shot on a guy. Something, for example, like Dameon Pierce is like a lightning rod in terms of the Dynasty community. But if you did take him at the end of the second round, around May, he definitely gave you a lot more value for your buck in terms of where you took him in the draft and what he was able to give you in terms of value for your roster and stuff. Tank Bigsby at the 201, he's a 4-star recruit. What I really like about his tape is that he's really good at putting his foot in the ground and kind of exploding off of the one cut. He's got pretty good size at 6 feet 210, and he had 30 receptions this season, so he is capable of catching the ball out of the backfield. He doesn't run an expansive route tree by any means. The only thing that I saw that I was concerned about is that his vision is a little bit inconsistent, in that he'll hit a hole one time and then it'll be the exact same play, exact same read, and he just thinks that the same thing is going to happen again with the linebacker either crashing down or giving him an edge or giving him a hole, and he does the exact same thing and it plays into the defense's hand. So I think that's something that he needs to do a little bit better of a job. And he had a 10.9% dominator rating this past season, which it's not exactly great. I say that's probably around like a Zamir White level of last season. My comp for him is Lamar Miller. So I don't know if you guys remember Lamar Miller, his play style at all, but I think they're fairly similar in terms of that. Lamar Miller, I believe, is like 5'11", 210-ish, so they're around the same size as well. So that's my breakdown on Tank.
Yeah, so what do you guys think about the potential receiving upside for Tank here? I know he's in college, he's upped his production from that standpoint pretty significantly. He had 30 receptions this last season for 180 yards. That's just over 5 yards a carry, with, for a running back, not a terrible target share. But Simon, have you seen any Tank film, or Jeremy or Avery? But what do you guys think about that? Could that bode well for him in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like with Tank Bigsby, I'd like him to, if he's going to make that jump to the next level, if he's going to score fantasy points for our team. Obviously you want to see these guys develop into very good pass and catching backs, and you're seeing it now when you see how teams are prioritizing, what type of running back they're drafting. I mean, as much as we dog on James Cook, this is why James Cook got the draft capital he did. This is why the Bills took him, is because he does fit that mold of being able to, play out of the backfield, even line up out in the slot a little bit, and then go out there and catch passes for this air raid heavy offense that we're looking at for the NFL. So with Tank, I'd obviously want to see that go up even a little bit. 30 receptions this year. Obviously, that's up from 21 and then 11 his prior 2 years. However, I would like to see him improve in that aspect. I think he's a good runner. Just watching him on film and just kind of getting a general idea as we're so early in the offseason. I think he's a decent to good runner. I would like to see his pass catching abilities, take a bit of a leap as we go in the NFL. That being said, I'm going to be looking, for that in a lot of these guys, just purely based on the scheme that the NFL is starting to revolve around it, and then playing in PPR leagues and getting those types of points. So, anything else on Tank?
No.
So
let's head over to Achane here.
Yeah. So Simon, I'm going to let you start here with Devon Achane. So Achane, obviously not the biggest dude, but if you have watched him, if you know about him, he is lightning fast. I mean, the dude, he is great in space. He's very, very fast. He obviously also provides a little bit of receiving upside, but I think the size is going to be the biggest concern here with Devon Achane. So, Simon, give me your breakdown on what you've seen from him. You've watched a lot of film. We have fought heavily over Achane here, but let's hear from you. We'll hear from Jeremy as well. What are you thinking about Devon Achane here?
Yeah, I love Achane. Coming out of the SEC, all 3 years, he's been really good. I mean, even as a freshman, having a considerable workload, even with Isaiah Spiller there, obviously getting drafted to the NFL last year. But he has really showcased his ability to, even as a small guy, 5'9", 170, 185, he's showcased his ability to still run between the tackles. He has world-class speed. I believe he ran like a 4.24 back in high school. So he's really, he's elite. He has a special skill set, and even with his size, he's still at an 8% target share in college. 24 receptions last year, 36 this year, on top of 1,100 rushing yards. And really, my only worry with him is his size. But my argument for Achane would be that, we're looking at guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who's also undersized, another guy who possesses that passing upside, that receiving upside, and we're willing to overlook the same, 27 BMI. He's undersized, something historically we try to avoid in fantasy, but they both have, a high level of, receiving upside, and both of them are really good, fast athletes and good rushers. So I'm willing to overlook that, pending draft capital.
All right, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Achane?
Yeah, like Simon said, NFL loves elite traits, and if there's one thing you can't coach, it's speed. And he's a world-class track athlete. He was an SEC track athlete. He was an Olympic qualifying track runner. So if that speaks to his speed at all, that's what you're going to get. If you watch him play, it's fast, and fast. He's a 26.3% college dominator rating. So in comparison to Tank Bigsby at 10.9, they play in the same conference. So Devon Achane definitely played much better in college per touch than Tank Bigsby did. The comp that I came to him last month or so when I did that thread on Twitter, he's like Chris Johnson. That's the only comp that I could come up for him in terms of size, weight, speed. Chris Johnson, I just listened to a podcast with him recently, and he talked about how he played at 195 in the NFL. And there's a lot more physical of a time in the NFL, a lot more running between the tackles for running backs, and not really scheming them a ton of touches outside of the box and running in between the tackles and stuff. So I think it lends to Devon Achane's skill set in today's NFL that he's going to be able to be schemed touches to where he's not getting pounded every single touch. I will say that he was more efficient as a runner when he had Isaiah Spiller with him. You could just look at his stats. He's more efficient per carry, per reception. So I think he would be best served in like a 12 to 15 touch capacity. I don't think he's going to be like a Chris Johnson type of player to where he's getting like 300 carries a year, but I think that's the kind of skill set that we're looking at.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have something on Achane, you can give it now, but I've, a couple thoughts from me. I obviously, he is capable in the passing game, and that's what you're looking for, especially a guy that size. Like, I think he's going to have to lean extremely heavily on, that part of his game if he wants to really be productive and really get himself into an offense in the NFL. Similar to, Devin Singletary is a guy with that size that has done that in an elite offense. But I think Raheem Mostert is also, somebody who's fairly comparable, size-wise. And I mean, Raheem Mostert is obviously fast as well. And how he's been used this season, like 170 attempts. He's not been getting that, super workhorse type of back production load, but he's obviously talented. He's obviously, had a decent career and, nothing super special, especially, towards the beginning parts of his career. But with Achane, I do think he has some of that really nice upside being that fast. And I think the speed is definitely a selling point. I worry, between the tackles with Achane, and that's kind of going to be a little bit important in the NFL, obviously, but
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring this argument back because it'll do well for the pod. But what are the big things that separate Devon Achane from Jahmyr Gibbs?
Jeremy, how about you go first?
I was actually thinking the same thing when I was talking about him, that I do think they bring a lot of the same things to the table. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a much more accomplished receiver. I think he runs a lot more routes, and he's lined up in a lot more creative ways in the offense. And that's not just an Alabama thing. He did that at Georgia Tech too. So you watch his tape, he's a way more proficient route runner. He's not as fast as Devon Achane. I think Devon Achane might actually be a better runner between the tackles too, if I had to grade out both of them. But I think that's the difference, that Jahmyr Gibbs is a great receiving back. Like, if it's not, it's between him and Bijan Robinson for who's the best receiving back in this class. I don't think Devon Achane brings that same capability as a receiver.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're right there with the efficiency too. I mean, Achane has 5.4 yards per carry off of his 36 receptions this year, and Jahmyr Gibbs had an even 9.
Yeah.
So his ability to create off of the opportunities that he had in the passing game were a lot more impressive for Gibbs. In terms of size, I understand the size. The BMI is almost the same for Gibbs and Achane, but Gibbs does have 15 pounds on Achane. I don't really know how much that matters. Like if that's the only thing that Gibbs has the leg up on for Achane, I don't see how Achane can't have just as a successful NFL career as Gibbs, potentially. I would put my money on Gibbs more than I would on Achane. That's why he's going in the second round versus Gibbs going at the 105.
But I mean, JC just hit the nail on the head. The NFL looks for elite skill sets, and the elite receiving upside of Jahmyr Gibbs is what's going to get him on the field. On top of that, what I would say is, when you're watching film on Gibbs, even at full speed, even at his top speed, he is still incredibly elusive. And that's something that you don't really see with Achane. He's not the same. He doesn't have the same twitch to him. He's, honestly, even for such a small guy, he relies on his power quite a lot.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. Watching Gibbs, what really stands out to me, especially, in open field, but even a little bit between the tackles. And I think I would give Gibbs the advantage between the tackles just watching that. I think it's close, but, personally, I think Gibbs has to rely more because he's not as fast as Achane, which of course he's not. I think he has to rely more on his footwork and his twitch. And I think, Simon, I think you're exactly right about that. Watching his footwork, even, in open field, but even getting carries between the tackles, I love what I see. I think Achane, he's going to rely heavily on his speed, and I think that tends to come into play, especially, when he is trying to run through the tackles. And, I think that's why you see, because he is, as small as he is, because, he is trying to just, if he hits a hole, obviously if he's got space, he's going to be gone. He's got that finishing speed. But if he's getting hit, most of the time with Achane, he is going to go down. I mean, you don't see him break and abnormal amount of tackles, which with Gibbs probably not either. The difference is, I see Gibbs make defenders miss more just because he is quick, he's elusive, and he has really, really nice footwork. He can put his foot in the ground and make defenders just completely look like idiots. So to me, that's the difference. And, obviously with Achane, the difference here is, going to be the draft capital, but you can get Achane in the second round. And when you're talking about second round dynasty picks, significantly cheaper. So, if this is somebody you really believe in, like Simon can get Achane very, very cheap, and that's going to be a really nice thing to be able to do. So, all right, good discussion there. Let's move on. Josh Downs at the 203. Josh Downs is a guy, that has been very fortunate with fairly good quarterback play while he's been at North Carolina. He was somebody that was projected in the late first and still is by some people of this rookie class. People have him as high as wide receiver 4, and previous to seeing some of these guys break out, he was, I think, as high as wide receiver 3. So with Josh Downs, Jeremy, give me your breakdown. I've owned him in Devy leagues, and I like the skill set, I like the production. What are the question marks with this game? What do you see from Josh Downs, and where do you think he's going to be going in the NFL draft?
Well, if you like production in college, you're definitely gonna like Josh Downs. He's 35.6% dominator rating, 19-year-old breakouts. That puts him in the 87th percentile among wide receiver prospects, and a 39.2% target share, which is the 99th percentile of wide receivers. So there's a whole talking point of good players earn targets. Well, Josh Downs earns targets more than essentially any receiver in college football. So Josh Downs, an exceptional route runner, has good speed. The only thing that you could be slightly concerned about is his size at 5'10". He's listed at 180. I don't think he actually weighs 180. If I had to guess, he's probably closer to 170 than he is 180. So at that point, you're talking about a guy that's probably most likely going to be exclusively a slot receiver, but we play in PPR mostly, and if you're an exclusive slot receiver that finds ways to get open, you're going to be pretty valuable on dynasty teams. Just for my money, I would much prefer Josh Downs over Tank Bigsby or Devon Achane, who have gone two in this class. I think that he's a much safer prospect. I think I know exactly what I'm getting out of Josh Downs. I know that we like to throw the wide receiver 2 term around here a lot. I think that he's probably a pretty solid bet to be a wide receiver 2 in his NFL career. I don't know if he'll ever have the touchdown upside to be a wide receiver 1. The guy that I think of when I watch him play is Randall Cobb.
Oh yeah, that's good. I think the biggest talking point here, that it is something that you kind of hit on, is where Josh Downs is going. Because Josh Downs, you said it yourself, production-wise, there are no issues. Really, the big question, again, with his game is going to be his size. But with receivers, you see that be a little bit less of an issue than with some of the other positions here. So at the 203, you have a guy that's produced that much in college. You take into account that with these rookie receivers, they are almost always guaranteed to at least maintain their ADP. You're talking about buying into somebody with almost zero risk, but a ton of upside if he does, boom, if he does take off. So at this price point, I do think I'm taking Downs over almost all of these dudes in the second round. I think there's an argument to, take him over Michael Mayer as well. I think if Richardson gets day 4 capital, I think there's a good argument there as well. With Josh Downs, there's not a ton to be super concerned about. You're getting him cheap. He's slid down because other people have slid up. This is a great price point. It's going to be a great investment. I think if you can get your hands on Josh Downs, he's going to end up being a value in Dynasty. But any other thoughts on Downs, dudes?
No, there's not much to not like about Downs when you watch the film. There's just a receiver going in the second round that if I were put in a situation and had a choice between the two, I'd take the other guy, and we'll get to him soon. So,
oh boy. All right. So at the 204, who went at the 204? I don't have the
Kendre Miller.
Thank you. JC, thoughts on Kendre Miller? This seems a little bit high to me for Miller. He's going before Charbonnet. He's going before Mims, which I know these guys are about to drool all over Mims on this show, but is this where he should be going? Does he have this type of upside? Is this a reach? What are you thinking about Kendre Miller here?
Yeah, I didn't even prepare a real write-up on Marvin Mims because I figured I would just sit there and listen to the two guys next to you just talk about Marvin Mims the entire time. I'm assuming that's who Nathan was alluding to during the Josh
yes
discussion.
Maybe.
I really like Kendre Miller. So you're talking about a guy that pretty much split time with Zach Evans last season, and then Sonny Dice comes into TCU and brings in a spread offense that's a lot more explosive, and he stays. And I think that he really reaped the benefits from that. He's got a strong lower half. He squats 600 pounds. He's a pile mover. He's got pretty good hands coming out of the backfield. He's a physical runner, but I think that he could get the edge on people fairly well for how big that he is. He's around 6 feet, 225. So I think he has really good speed to the edge. And if you watch the Michigan game this past weekend, that's a pretty good Michigan defense that sets the edge with guys like Mike Morris and stuff like that. And he was able to get the edge fairly consistently against Michigan. Unfortunately, he suffered a knee injury and he left the game. I'm not sure to the extent of what that injury is. But the guy that I think of when I watch Kendre Miller play, ironically enough, is Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh, goodness.
Interesting.
I mean,
okay.
Looking at his, rushing production, he's been very efficient. And looking at his receiving production, I think that leaves more to be desired. However, I think that's a fairly good comp because I think with Ramondre, we're thinking the same thing. And there were a lot of questions with Ramondre this year in terms of, especially from us, but whether he would end up being, that back that was on the field for the Patriots on third downs, whether he was going to get enough targets out of the backfield. And you've seen Ramondre Stevenson, kind of blossom into a running back one role this year production-wise. And, with Kendre Miller, I have some questions. I think, obviously he's big. He's not going to have, lightning breakaway speed by any means, but he's clearly been efficient in that offense. Obviously, he's playing on an elite team in TCU, a team that's made it to the national championship game. I'd like to see his receiving upside go up more. Outside of that, it's just he's another running back in the second round here. And again, this running back class is just so much deeper than last year's. I mean, we lost our solid, dart throw options for running backs after after Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker last year. I mean, for the next guys being off the board, Rashad White, Dameon Pierce, James Cook, talking about guys that the draft capital is not a ton to write home about. And some of these guys, well, I do think, they might not get draft capital that's far superior to those guys. They're definitely, when you're looking at their skill set, when you're looking at their college production, when you're looking at the type of prospect they are, you're definitely more excited and definitely more willing to go, throw a second round pick at these guys. So at the 205. All right, here we go. The cover boy of this video, I will have him ranked extremely high in this class, Zach Charbonnet. I wanted Zach Charbonnet to come out last year. I do think, he would have been, I don't know, I think there's a good chance he would have been the third running back off the board last year. It was an extremely shallow running back class. He has good size. He has the size to be a workhorse back. To me, people question his twitch. People question him making defenders miss. I see it a fair amount, with Charbonnet. It's not really something that I'm looking at. I'm watching him, and I think he's a very well-rounded running back. He can obviously offer you receiving upside. He's got big play ability. He's been efficient. He's a bigger guy, so he's going to make some, tacklers miss. I think, the breakaway speed is obviously something that nobody's going to say is a huge strength for Zach Charbonnet. But with that being said, when I'm looking at just all of his skills in totality, I'm looking at Zach Charbonnet and I'm thinking he has got what it takes to be, a good workhorse back in the NFL, size-wise, skill-wise, receiving upside-wise. I think he would fit an NFL offense well. I think if he goes to the right landing spot, at the 205, I'm probably going to trade for him in every single Dynasty league. And I know you guys are just as high on him. And so, JC, we're high on Charbonnet. I love Charbonnet. He's my baby. But tell me what you think. Tell me, about his skill set, where he's going here at the 205, and what kind of draft capital you think he's going to get, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be here at the 205 when drafts really start rolling.
Correct.
For a typical size, 6'1", 20, really soft hands out of the backfield. He's definitely increased that part of his game since leaving Michigan and going over to UCLA with Chip Kelly. 24.5% college dominator rating, so that's pretty good too. I would say if you have over 18 19% college dominator rating as a running back. It's fairly good. And dominator rating, in case people are watching this video and don't know what that means, it's market share or production relative to like your offense's total output. So 24.5% dominator rating would mean basically 1 out of every 4 yards that UCLA collects through the air or on the ground is through Zach Charbonnet. So pretty efficient. I think the one thing that he lacks is the breakaway speed. I don't think you're going to see Zach Charbonnet peel off an 80-yard run unless a DB pulls a hamstring chasing after him. My comp for him is James Conner. That was my comp in September. I still think it fits. Really good contact balance. I'm a big fan of Zach Charbonnet. I think he's definitively better than Tank Bigsby. I think he's better than Kendre Miller. I think it's closer than you would think, but I think he's definitely better than Devon Achane too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd take him over Achane also.
Pretty much a borderline late round 1 talent, but because of the nature of the running back position, I think you're going to consistently get him at the beginning of the second. You can be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think NFL draft wise, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go, if he has a good combine, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go late round 2. But I mean, also if he slides in round 3, I think that's where people are kind of projecting him to go. But you guys have any thoughts on Charbonnet? I know he's a guy that we're high on, kind of collectively here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely a case for RB3 in the class for him, and I don't know why people aren't talking about that more. I mean, I even saw someone on Twitter yesterday put him as their RB2 in front of Jahmyr Gibbs just because of his prototypical size.
Yeah.
Because, like JC said, at 6'1", 220, that is exactly the size you need to carry a workhorse role in the NFL, and he showcases all the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Skill set wise, well rounded. I think you're right. Probably not going to be going at the 205. Especially, given the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if he jumped up in the NFL draft as well. I think at that point people are going to start taking him earlier. And obviously this is all going to change. This is just very high level. So at the 206, you have Jalin Hyatt, which this is going to be kind of a polarizing prospect. But I want your thoughts right off the bat here, JC, because I know you've got some interesting thoughts on Hyatt in terms of where he should be valued among some of these receivers. So give us your breakdown on Hyatt.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Jalin Hyatt. I get it. He's fast. He just won a Blitnikoff Award. If you watch the Tennessee offense, they essentially run half of the field is actually running a route, and then the other half is kind of just jogging off the line of scrimmage and is just kind of there in case all hell breaks loose. I personally don't think that he's even the best wide receiver on the Tennessee roster. He does have like physical attributes. He's 6'2", 210, pretty quick. I would comp him to like DJ Chark, to where he's somebody to where, there's so much potential here. Look at his speed, look at his size, look at his length. It just never really quite seems to kind of, turn into something of actual value. It's just like nice on the field. That would be my Jalin Hyatt comp. I don't dislike him as a person. I just don't like him as a prospect.
No, I think you kind of summarize what we think as well. I think because he was such a highly decorated receiver this year in college football, there are going to be people that just simply based on that fact, given, the Blitnikoff and everything, that, Jalin Hyatt should be going higher than this. Now, I will say, the one thing again with receivers is when they are rookies, they are almost risk-free. So, I mean, he's probably, regardless of what he does, in his first year in the NFL, you're probably going to be able to get out of him at the same price if he doesn't hit.
Yep.
So receivers in the second round, again, especially somebody that has been this decorated, he's probably worth a shot, value-wise. That being said, I wouldn't be expecting him to be a guy in the NFL that is going to boom. I don't think that's a guy you think you're going to see that pays off. So in terms of receivers here, I think we like Marvin Mims more, and Marvin Mims is our 207. So I'm not even going to say anything. I am just going to let you two talk about how his blocking is good and how that doesn't matter for fantasy, but go ahead.
Really doesn't. But Simon, I'll let you go first on this.
Yeah, I think I said which video. I said it in another video. Marvin Mims, it's not just an Oklahoma bias. He reminds me of Marquise Brown. He's got really similar, he's really, really quick. He's a small guy who somehow makes it work as the leading receiver in an offense. You see him hog targets on a very good Oklahoma team, even this last year. He had 19.3 yards per reception, which is 91st percentile in the nation. He broke out at 18, and he's really produced well in college as well. As an 18-year-old, he put up 610 yards in the Big 12, 705 last year, and even 1,000 this year. So the same thing we were saying with Josh Downs, a receiver that produces in college is that's something you'd like to see for a lot of players, because if you're able to get open and command targets, even at that size, you'd expect it to be able to translate to the NFL. So
yeah.
Yeah, and with that size, I mean, that's probably going to be a big concern for him when it comes to dynasty owners drafting him in the second round. They're going to look at that size and they're going to be like, oh, but small receivers don't do well in the NFL. I'm not buying that. We never really have, and I don't think we ever will, because like we made that mistake with Rondale Moore, and then he comes in, and while he's healthy this season, is getting like 10 targets a game. And if you're a good receiver and you're small in the NFL, you make it work. And with him, like not only is he making it work as a receiver, but I understand that pass blocking doesn't or blocking in the run game doesn't really contribute to fantasy production, obviously, but it shows that he's willing to play that piece in an offense for any NFL team, and that will get him a significant amount of snap share in the NFL. And at that size, that's really impressive. So yeah. That's just really attractive to me. I think it shows that he has a lot of really good intangibles, and as a wide receiver who's very unselfish and will do what the team needs him to do. And when anyone does that in the NFL, it's going to give them opportunities.
Yeah, so I will actually say something here, and I'll fight back a little bit because I'm just not as high on Marvin Mims. But, you know, at 5'9", you know, the size is going to be a concern, whether, you know, it's warranted or not. You know, it's slightly concerning. That said, you bring up Rondale Moore. I mean, Rondale Moore, the difference here, I think, is that Marvin Mims' athleticism really doesn't pop off the page. Rondale Moore ran a 4.3, and Marvin Mims is sitting at a 4.6. I mean, that's what his high school time on here on Player Profiler says 4.61. I Googled it. It said 4.67. So, I mean, for a guy that small, I'm really looking for some eye-popping athleticism in order to be like, okay, this guy I think is going to be a difference maker in the
some
NFL.
Quickness.
And while that's not a deal breaker, you know, obviously college dominator 21%, but his college target share was 12%. So, you know, he's been a fairly serviceable, I mean, I think better than serviceable. I think he's been a very good receiver at Oklahoma. Production-wise, he was over 1,000 yards this year. He's only 20 years old. You know, he can obviously play special teams as well, and that's valuable to people. However, you know, I also do notice that he only brought in 52 of his 88 targets, which is a little bit low. That being said, I know the quarterback play in Oklahoma wasn't necessarily the best, so you have to give him that benefit of the doubt. When I'm looking at a receiver this small again, I think my thing, you know, I think I would take Josh Downs over him pretty easily, but I see the attraction here. I see why you guys like him. I'm not as quick to jump on board, but Jeremy, I'm interested to hear your thoughts as we kind of wrap this up here.
Yeah, I mean, if we were counting blocking for fantasy football, I mean, George Kittle will be the 101 in dynasty drafts. Did you see him just absolutely body slam Max Crosby yesterday? Yes. I mean, that was insane. I think it's funny that Marvin Mims' blocking is being spoken about in the comp is a guy that notoriously wanted to leave his team because he did not want to block Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, I mean, Mims would be a great fit for the Ravens offense then. He could take that back over.
I actually really like Marvin Mims. You know, he doesn't have, I think he's what, like 5'10", 180? Something like
5'9", 177.
5'9", 177, yeah. So I think he's a little more solid than Josh Downs. Josh Downs is listed at 5'10", 180. I like I said, I don't think he actually weighs 180 pounds. I would be very surprised if that's what he weighed in at. If you watch Marvin Mims' tape, though, he's very aggressive when it comes to high pointing the ball, and he does a really good job of that for somebody his size. Somebody that kind of reminded me of him when I was watching him play was rookie year Elijah Moore. That was the kind of skill set that I took away from watching Marvin Mims, to where Elijah Moore was very good as a rookie. He just forgot how to play football, or the team just doesn't like him now. But another big point that I give Marvin Mims, and you guys are talking about willing to do a lot of things for the team. In today's day and age of NIL, Marvin Mims had every opportunity to leave Oklahoma and go with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley over to USC, and he would have been just fine over there. probably would have increased his draft stock, but he stayed at Oklahoma. I think that speaks a lot to who Marvin Mims is as a leader on the team and his overall character. So I like Marvin Mims. I don't think I would take him over Josh Downs, but I think an underrated quality of his game is his ability to high point the ball in the air for his size. It's almost like Jahan Dotson-esque in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think he runs a low 4.6 anymore. I mean, that was 3 years ago in high school. I would see him running, what you would expect in the mid 4.4s. So
if he runs like sub 4.45, I would be.
You think he increased his 40 time that much in college?
Yeah, I mean, most players do.
All right, we'll see. I don't see
it. That would be huge. Even you're right about that. That would be huge if he could get.
Well, I mean, that's why he's not. I mean,
there.
The difference, obviously, is he's not projected to go. I mean, at this point, he's not in most of the mock drafts because they're not going past the second or third round. And right now, he's not getting that type of capital. So while he's a receiver and it matters less, I think that there is something to be said in terms of and you guys obviously know this and think the same way on this. We're going to have to see what the NFL says, and I think his combine with his size is going to be huge. I think Josh Downs is going to be the same way. I believe in Josh Downs' ability to have a much better combine than Marvin Mims. Personally, I do think he's just a better athlete, and around the same size. That's going to be about the same issue of concern there. But I don't know. I don't see him jumping up into the low 4.4s here. I don't see the speed. I think the high pointing of the ball is why, and the aggressiveness, while the ball is in the air. I think that's why he was able to get on the field and produce, a fair amount this year, given the size, given, not the most lightning fast player you've ever seen. But again, I mean, that is what makes, that's his special trait as a receiver, I think. And I think that's why he had 1,000 yards on an Oklahoma team that, wasn't bad, wasn't great. And I think, person-wise leadership as well, I think there's a great argument to be made that he'll make a really good pro. We're just going to have to see about the question marks that we have. So, Marvin Mims.
Rashee Rice is a guy who's coming up next year on our board, and he's 6'2", 203. So I don't think size is really a concern here for him. His production this year was off the charts, really just from a sheer volume perspective. Was he the only receiver of relevance there? With 157 targets.
I mean, he had 30% target share, I think so.
That's insane.
Yeah. JC, do you know of another? Do you know the wide receiver 2 at SMU? I don't even know who it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really of any importance.
Right. Yeah. Give us your thoughts on Rashee Rice here.
So he's a senior, so he'll be at the Senior Bowl at over 1,300 yards this year at SMU. So a late breakout. The one thing that really pops off the tape for me is his length. The guy is he's like one of those dolls that is like the blow up doll outside of like a car dealership that's just like waving around in the air and stuff. His arms are so long. He's a great tracker of the football. So that also lends to a really good catch radius. So he's going to be a quarterback's best friend. The guy that actually came to mind is Chris Godwin for me.
Ooh, don't be talking about Godwin on
the
show.
Don't say his name.
Man,
it's just
it's
too good.
We love Chris Godwin. He's like our favorite fantasy player. But yeah, go ahead.
Was a mid when he came out of Penn State, so he wasn't exactly like a superstar by any means coming out.
Yeah.
But again, someone saw that talent level and was able to capitalize on it in the NFL.
Yep.
So
yeah, and I think another thing he's gonna that's going to work against him is the fact that he did play at SMU, which, I mean, again, competition-wise, team-wise, you're not looking at, the most competitive. However, you see some of these guys, Christian Watson is an example coming out of North Dakota State, and while they're a very good, historically a very good football program, again, they're not also facing the best competition. And with Rashee Rice, I mean, I think you could see the same thing here. So moving on to the 209, we've got Cedric Tillman, 6'3", obviously played for a very, very good team this year. But I think, with Cedric Tillman, this is a guy that you were referencing earlier, Jeremy. So give us your thoughts on Tillman.
Yeah, if there was my guy for this draft, it would be Cedric Tillman for me. Right. I love Cedric Tillman personally. He didn't play a lot, unfortunately, in 2022. He had an ankle injury. He's one of these guys that have kind of suffered from the COVID era of college football, to where he didn't really play a ton his freshman year or his sophomore year, really. And then the new coach, Heupel, comes in for the COVID-shortened season. And then 2021, he really takes off once that offense and some of Heupel's recruits come in and kind of transcend Tennessee football back to what it was, in the late 90s. 6'3", 215, runs. He'll probably run like a 4.5, 4.55, 4.58, like somewhere in that range. That's what I would assume he's going to run. And the guy that I see when I watch him play, he runs a lot of slants, a lot of comebacks, because he's kind of the security blanket for Hendon Hooker when he has played on the field. And if you watch him play against Georgia, Keely Ringo, the first round prospect at corner, traveled with Cedric Tillman all over the field. He didn't cover Jalin Hyatt. So I think that also speaks to the fact that I think everyone knows that Cedric Tillman, when he's on the field, is the number one receiver on that team. And I think that he has a lot more dimensions. He has a lot more layers to the onion, so to speak, with Cedric Tillman. The guy that I see is Michael Thomas.
Huh. Yeah.
I think with the size, the body control, I think his ability to shield defenders, to make himself a big target for his receiver, I think he's going to eat if he goes to a team that runs like a West Coast style offense. And if you look at Michael Thomas's college numbers, he entered the draft when he was 23 years old as well. He didn't break out, quote unquote, until his third season in college. Then his fourth season, he didn't play really. He kind of got banged up and stuff. But I think there's a lot of similarities, and it sounds outlandish because Michael Thomas is one of the better PPR receivers of our time. But I think the similarities are there. I really like Cedric Tillman. I think if he is here come rookie draft season, every single one of my teams will have Cedric Tillman on it. I don't think he will be. I think the NFL will be higher on him. Also as an NFL dad too. So like the lineage there with Cedric Tillman, same thing with like a guy like Michael Pittman, NFL ties. So I think he'll do exceedingly well when he gets into a room with NFL scouts, NFL front offices, and I think you'll see him move up boards. He'll also be at the Senior Bowl in Mobile.
I mean, we are at the 209 here, and we have this. I mean, guys like this. And this should tell you more than anything that these second-round picks are worth going and getting. I mean, again, Cedric Tillman being a wide receiver, you're going to see another wide receiver here. There is going to be very little risk in rostering him in a dynasty league. I mean, he is a guy that because of his circumstances, he could be a little bit of a sleeper. I mean, you saw his production limited for various reasons. He's obviously, played quite a bit, in years-wise in college now, so he's going to be a little bit older coming out. But at the same time, the 209, I mean, we're talking about the late second. Like, you're talking about a price you pay in Dynasty for a late second. Like, these guys are absolutely worth just going and getting that late second, shipping off what may be like a decreasing contending asset and, going through and getting these guys like Cedric Tillman, these receivers. And then at the 210, I'll let Simon, you start with this one, Blake Corum. And Blake Corum, obviously, very productive this year at Michigan. He's got, a decent BMI given his size. He is 5'8", but I think he comes in at 200 pounds, which is fairly good. He just turned 22. He's fairly young. He played with another good back there in Donovan Edwards. So give me your thoughts on Blake Corum, how you think his skill set is going to translate to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think he profiles well just to be a good rusher in the NFL. He doesn't do anything like we were talking about earlier. He doesn't do anything especially well. He's not elite in any aspect. He's not particularly fast or elusive or anything like that. He's a smart runner. He runs well behind his line, granted being the best O-line in college football. But he still displays a lot of ability to learn. I watched his sophomore year film and I wasn't really impressed by it because I didn't see him make guys miss very often, or even doubted his vision at times. And then between his sophomore and junior years, he improved a lot over the offseason. You could tell what he was working on. He gained some ability to be more elusive, and really that's something that I like. He's only 22 years old. He played 3 years at Michigan, and even as a sophomore broke out and almost had 1,000 yards with 24 receptions. So he's decent at everything, and this is where he should be going. I don't think there's really a case to put him much higher unless the NFL thinks so.
Yeah, I mean, I just question his athletic ceiling and how much can he really do in the NFL from that perspective, which will really affect his production. So with him, like when I watch him, he's very smart, which, like Simon said, that's just something he's learned over the years. And as you know, at other positions, you can become a really solid fantasy asset as you improve in that way. But at running back, his athleticism is still probably the most important thing here, and he just doesn't have that upside like Achane does, or heck, even Tank Bigsby. And his ability to make guys miss is really nice. His ability to find the open space, he's very spatially aware. He chooses the right place to run almost always when the opportunity is there. The problem is once he has that breakout run, like I've almost never seen him get to the end zone because everyone's catching up to him. Sure. He's just not that fast.
Didn't he like lead the nation in breakaway runs to the first 8 games?
Well, yeah, he had a ton of breakaway runs, and yet the ones that I saw, like someone always caught up to him. Like his explosiveness wasn't insane. So that's just my concern with him. Does that mean he can't be successful in the NFL? No. Can he be a workhorse back? Probably not.
Probably not.
So that, like you said, that's probably why he's going at the tail end of the second round here, though. He's still worth a shot.
Yeah. JC, thoughts on Blake Corum here?
Yeah, I mean, I think they covered it for the most part. Good contact balance. He's very confident in his running ability. He's decisive when he puts his foot in the ground. He's always moving his legs, so he's never going to get, stopped and then just lay down and fall over. He's always turning his legs, always falling forward, always trying to get more yardage. He's got pretty good vision. I think, like Nathan said, the only limitation on him is his athletic ability, just given his size. The guy that I thought of when I watched him play was MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew. I think that's kind of like his athletic ceiling. I mean, MJD had some pretty productive years for those Jacksonville Jaguars teams. But even like worst case scenario, if he's like Devin Singletary, like you'll take that like
sure.
At the end of the second round in terms of production and stuff. So I think Blake Corum's a pretty good football player. So I feel pretty at this stage.
Yeah, and again, production-wise, not an issue. I mean, you saw him come out and put up almost 1,500 yards this year alone. I mean, it's playing against putting up 200 yards on IU. As much as I love IU, not really impressive. So there's got to be some of that taken into account. That being said, I mean, overall, the Big Ten is a fairly well-rounded, one of the best conferences in college football. So. That's obviously nothing to shy away from production-wise. And then at the 211, this is a guy I think we might see slide up a little bit. Not because I have personally been super impressed with Zay Flowers here, but I have seen quite a bit of buzz around Zay Flowers for as late as he's projected to go or he's going in dynasty drafts. Like NFL-wise, I mean, I think I saw that Mel Kiper had him on like his top 25, which again, it's Mel Kiper, so you're just kind of taking that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, it's very surprising to me given how many receivers I had have above Zay Flowers. So I want your thoughts immediately on this, JC. What do you think of Zay Flowers here? I've heard a lot of buzz around him. Is he a guy you think that could climb up as we get closer to draft time here?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to shout out the HQ nerd, Joe Leary. Huge Zay Flowers guy, and he's a guy that turned me on to Zay Flowers. I just didn't really give much thought to him before the process started going and stuff. But he kept saying Zay Flowers, tweeting Zay Flowers. So I was like, all right, let me go check out Zay Flowers, see like what the fuss is about. Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, he just put out one of his first mock drafts, and he had Zay Flowers going at the 25th pick, I believe, to the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think you would probably like that as a Justin Herbert fan, him getting another weapon at the receiver position. What I really like about Zay Flowers is that he runs the full route tree. He's increased his target share every single year at college, and his dominator rating has also increased. I believe this past season he had a 37% target share as a receiver. And the other thing that you're going to really like about Zay Flowers is that he's a leader. He's a guy that actually does block, and it's been seen that he's like crying on the field when he's blocking. Like he gets that angry that he starts to cry and stuff. And his coach would literally run through a brick wall for him. Jeff Hafley has some pretty incredible quotes about Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers probably saved Jeff Hafley's job there at Boston College because it was not looking it was looking pretty grim for him about halfway through the season. But Boston College turned it around, and it was in no small part due to Zay Flowers. Ironically enough, the guy that I think of when I watch Zay Flowers play, I think of Antonio Brown. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be, wide receiver 1 for like 4 years of like his career, but I think he offers kind of the same skill set of an Antonio Brown to where he's like 5'10", 185, but he's really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. He could take the cover off the defense. I really like Zay Flowers. He runs the full gamut of the route tree too. So I think he's shown that he understands the game of football as well.
Yeah, and again, I just looked 16th on Kuiper's big board. Jordan Addison is 15th, and Zay Flowers is 16th. So, and then you just mentioned it. You're seeing him mocked in the first. I mean, think about it. If we see Zay Flowers go in the first round, I mean, it doesn't really matter what we think of him. He's going to jump up dynasty draft boards.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, people are so high on some of these top 15, 16 prospects. You could be getting a receiver, which is, obviously the best investment in dynasty, first round capital, very good college production, and you could get him mid-second round. I mean,
he won't go mid-second anymore, but
that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's going. I mean, I don't think I've seen him go higher than late second at this point. I question actually how much people are going to elevate him over these guys that they've already like decided that they really like. I mean, sometimes we see that with dynasty players. So I actually do think there's a chance in some drafts you're going to see him slide to the second round. I think people are going to be willing to take Michael Mayer in the late first, and as good as Michael Mayer can be, there are just a lot of guys. I mean, I'd rather have a receiver with first-round draft capital than a tight end with first-round draft capital, especially their first year. Now, that being said, I think there is good, enough potential for him to jump up in dynasty drafts into that early second. And but again, that's a great price for these guys, and a guy that's gotten a lot of hype. And then at the 212, we'll finish this up with Deuce Vaughn. So Deuce Vaughn, I mean, you could make the argument that he was one of the best college football running backs this year in the country. Production wise, the man was insane for a 5'6" dude. He put up almost 1,600 yards. Obviously he's not getting in the end zone a lot, which for 5'6", 170, you're really expecting that. But 9 touchdowns. I mean, he's efficient. He's at 5.3 yards per carry. He is extremely fun to watch. So you guys have any thoughts on Deuce Vaughn to start us off here? I mean, I do think there's not a ton to be said given that, his size is going to limit how much of this translates to the NFL by quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, watching him, I was very high on him, but then, there's just too much I don't think I can overlook. He's 5'6", like you said, 5'6", 173 pounds, and that he just doesn't profile to have a role in the much of a role in the NFL. He's good enough; he will get touches. They will scheme him touches, but he really seems more like a guy who gets like 6 touches on a weekly basis. Just to throw him something. He's not going to be. I don't even ever see him reaching 15 touches a game, and the draft capital will show what a team is willing to throw at him and invest in him, and then if he gets second round draft capital like his production would deserve, then that's a completely different story. But I just don't see the NFL doing that, especially with the way running backs are valued in the modern league.
Yeah, and your comp that you had for him, I know last time we talked about it was Darren Sproles.
Yeah, which is funny because they went to the same school. But
that's funny.
Yeah,
yeah. But I would probably be with you on that. I would honestly rather just shoot my shot on a wide receiver.
Absolutely. Yeah. JC, thoughts on Deuce Vaughn?
I was going to say everybody's comp for him is going to be Darren Sproles because he went to I think it's lazy. I would give him my comp for him would be like a Tariq Cohen, Jerick McKinnon type of player. If you watch him play against Alabama, he looked pretty explosive, and there's quite a few NFL prospects that are on that Alabama defense. It even included an 88-yard touchdown run against Alabama. I really like Deuce Vaughn. I didn't much care for him, again, because of the aforementioned size. I think the size is a huge issue. But, if you remember how they deployed Tariq Cohen and how Darren Sproles was deployed and how they're using Jerick McKinnon now in Kansas City, I think this is a role. I think this is a role for a running back, and I think that he offers a unique skill set to use that ability to NFL. So I like Deuce Vaughn here. I think it'll depend on where he lands. Like if you're telling me like Deuce Vaughn, I know we talked about Sean Tucker at the end of last draft going to potentially like Chiefs, but say like Jerick McKinnon's a free agent at the end of the year. Say they go ahead and say, all right, like we'll draft Deuce Vaughn in the 5th round. Tell me like Deuce Vaughn's probably not like a mid-second round pick now. So
yeah, I don't know, but I mean we've seen time and time again running backs with that draft capital just don't they don't pan out long term. So wouldn't you rather spend that 2nd round pick on a guy that's going to maintain his value for longer, like a wide receiver?
No, I'm yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be made to take a receiver instead, but we're not all reasonable people. If we see a landing spot, the Kansas City Chiefs are taking a running back, plug in, utilize him the way they're using McKinnon right now. I'm sure there are a lot of people that'll give up a mid-second round pick for Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, and I don't think the Chiefs really care about they're using Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So they use
right.
They've shown that the draft capital doesn't really matter in their offense.
But if they go and they get Deuce Vaughn this draft, that obviously affects Pacheco. What's to keep them from getting another running back in the later rounds the following year to replace Deuce Vaughn?
So
they just
I think he nailed it. I think this is going to be landing spot dependent. I think there is a chance that Deuce Vaughn gets in and does hardly anything. But again, I think there are rules for him. I think if he were to go an elite team, people would start jumping up for him, which normally is a red flag. I mean, you see that again. The Chiefs are like the classic example in the last 5 years of prospects go there and people are like, oh crap. And then they never, I mean, Isaiah Pacheco was the one guy we were like, yeah, whatever. And he's the one guy that actually started getting like legit carries there. So you just never know with some of these landing spots. With that being said, since he's going at the 212, I mean, for him to jump up maybe to mid-late second, that's not that much investment to take a shot on a guy like that, and especially since you've seen how some of these elite offenses are using their running backs. It's not really, while we'd rather use the pick on a wide receiver, I mean, you're not talking about a ton of investment here when you're trading up to get him. So I think that's also worth noting. So look at how stacked that 2nd round is. I mean, people who watch this video, people who get on board early are going to really reap the benefits of getting in on a very talented draft class. And I think as we get closer, and I think obviously as the draft occurs, we're going to see this 2nd round get really shifted around. The 1st round is going to get shifted around some, but we have a pretty good idea based on level of prospect and buzz, like where these guys in generality are going to fall. There's probably going to be a couple that sneak up or sneak down. Outside of that, the 2nd round is where you're going to see a lot of movement. There are probably a bunch of guys that are not on this list that are going to end up going in the 2nd round. You saw that a lot last year with the early mock drafts in Dynasty. There are guys. James Cook was not going in the 2nd round.
Jalen Weidermeyer was going early 2nd round.
So this is going to change a lot. Regardless of that, I mean, we went through quite a few guys today that are going to be great dart throws at an extremely cheap price, especially the receivers, but even a very, very, very deep running back class. So, any snubs you guys think from the 2nd round? Anybody you expected to see go here that didn't?
Chase Brown.
Okay.
Yep. That's probably the first guy off my list that I can think of.
I like Chase Brown. Jeremy, any guys you were surprised didn't go here?
Nobody that I'm surprised didn't go. Some omissions were Chase Brown, Kenny McIntosh at Georgia, and Kendall Milton. I don't know what Kendall Milton's situation is. I am thinking that he might stay another year, just because he's been banged up most of the year and he's kind of missed his ability to take over that Georgia backfield. He's waited a couple of years to do so now. Kenny McIntosh, though, great running back. The NFL loves Georgia running backs. Really good receiving ability out of the backfield. So I think Kenny McIntosh could sneak his way in here, definitely. Really good size, too, at 6'1", 210. Got some receivers, Parker Washington, Raheem Jarrett, and Romo Odunze. Parker Washington, Penn State guy, 5'10", 210 is what he's listed at. So he's pretty solid for a wide receiver. That's more of like a running back. So pretty good lower half on Parker Washington. Raheem Jarrett, former highly touted recruit at Maryland, 6'2", 210. He's got really good body control. A lot of people I've seen a lot of comps for Juju Smith-Schuster with him. So I wouldn't be at all shocked if he found his way into the 2nd round and then a couple tight ends here. Darnell Washington at Georgia and Dalton Kincaid at Utah were just some guys that could potentially work their way here into the second round, specifically in tight end premium leagues.
Yeah. All right. So longer video, but again, there's so much to unpack with these guys. If you're really looking to get a leg up on your dynasty leagues, on your dynasty teammates, then this is going to be where you're going to do it. It's knowing these deeper prospects. It's getting into the second round, knowing the guys to take shots on, and then those guys paying off. I mean, it's every little thing you can do to get advantage over your league mates, and this is going to be huge. So we're going to have content like this all off season. Dynasty season starts today as we have finished up the fantasy championship. So we're going to have it all for you here. Make sure for that reason that you subscribe to our channel. We're going to give you the best content. We'll bring JC on quite a bit. He's extremely knowledgeable, as you can tell. We're going to give you the best content and analysis of these guys as we get closer to the draft as we possibly can. So subscribe. Make sure you like the video. And if you've hung in here this long, you are a dedicated Dynasty player, and we really appreciate you watching. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you later.